everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back for another jam-packed episode full of some of your favorite boutique label releases. We have titles from the Criterion Collection, tons of titles from Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance Films, Eureka, MVD Entertainment. We have a really well-rounded slate that I'm super excited to delve into. So I'm going to start with not a boutique label release, but one of the more popular TV shows on at the moment. This is the first season of Landman from Paramount. This is the Paramount Plus original, starring Billy Bob Thornton, John Hamm, Demi Moore, Ollie Larder, a lot of great people in here from the Taylor Sheridan universe, so the creator of Yellowstone and Lioness and Tulsa King. So this is a 3-disc release. These are stacked disc over here. This has been kind of popping off when it debuted last fall, and if you keep up with Taylor Sheridan shows, like I've discussed Yellowstone and Tulsa King and stuff on here before. The last couple seasons of Yellowstone were very erratic, to say the least. But he can start a show very, very well, and Landman is another example of that. It's a very entertaining show set in Texas, set in the oil industry, and any show where you have Billy Bob Thornton giving like lengthy monologues about business dealings and mineral rights and all of that kind of stuff, you really just kind of get wrapped up in it, because Taylor Sheridan always gets really great actors for his shows. And he has a really killer cast in this one. And there's all kinds of backroom dealing, like nefarious activities, all kinds of personal drama. Everything's going on in here, which makes Landman very entertaining in its first season. So I highly recommend that if you kind of like, if you're in the same wavelength as Taylor Sheridan and his universe of shows. But even not, I think this is one of the stronger debut outings from him I've seen. It's not just him, but I'm just using it as a shorthand. He has a co-creator on this one, but this is a very entertaining show. So I think if you want like kind of like a semi-soapy drama with like nice intrigue and great actors and all that kind of stuff, Landman season 1 will definitely get you there. It's 10 episodes. It has been renewed for a second season. This is presented in Dolby True HD 5.1. Sounds great. The HD picture looks good. As I said, there's 10 episodes with 3 discs, so there's nothing is overly compressed. Disc-wise, everything looks very nice. You get a good number of featurettes. You get like over 80 minutes of special features, so including some featurettes that like run up to 31 minutes long, just settling you into the show and the storylines and all the kind of the ethos of everything. So Landman season 1, very good Blu-ray of this one, and just a very entertaining time overall. As with most of the titles I'll be talking about on the show today, I will be you can usually find a written review on GeekVibesNation.com sometime after this video is posted. So I'm trying to give as broad of an overview as possible while not keeping you here like 9 hours. So that's a very entertaining one. But my next title will have a written review on Geek Vibes Nation. That's the first one from the Criterion Collection I'm talking about. And that's a 4K debut of The Wiz. So this is a classic musical from Sidney Lumet. Yes, Sidney Lumet doing a musical. Is he the best person to do a musical? Probably not. But this is kind of has like a interesting reputation. This is kind of the back artwork. It was kind of like a notorious flop when it came out, but there's a lot to appreciate about this one, and it's kind of gotten some reappraisal over the years. Is it perfect? No, this is the essay that you can get along with it. But I do think it's quite good. This was actually my first time watching it in full. I'd seen parts of it on television back in the day, but I'd never seen it in full. So, of course, it's a take on The Wizard of Oz. with a primarily African American cast. So you have people like Diana Ross and Michael Jackson in like their roles, and it's completely different music from The Wizard of Oz. There's original songs, and that's probably the strongest part of The Wiz are the songs. There's some really catchy tunes in here that really give it a little bit of like its own identity, that is very lively, entertaining, and stuff. The next probably best part of it is the production design. There's a lot of really intricate settings and costumes and like creatures and stuff that are kind of conjured within this universe that I think are very interesting, and just it really gives the whole world a sense of space and a uniqueness that I really appreciate. And I really like technically what this film is doing. Where I think it kind of suffers a little bit is the direction of Lumet, who is one of the great directors. I just don't think he is great at directing musicals. A lot of his shot composition here really doesn't capture the energy of the performance at all times. A lot of times he'll just kind of hang back. And while wide shots are great a lot of times, he doesn't really capture, like, it just kind of is an awkward framing at points. The story itself, it has some differences from The Wizard of Oz, and sometimes those don't completely work, or sometimes the executions of certain plot points aren't the cleanest, but overall I think it is a pretty entertaining musical, and I think it doesn't deserve its level of derision that it's received over the years. It's not perfect, like I'm saying, but I think it is a pretty solid, like 6 or 7 out of 10 movie, especially just for the songs alone. And I'm glad the Criterion Collection agreed with me that it has a kind of importance that deserves recognition by putting it out on 4K. This is from a new 4K restoration that was conducted by Universal and given to Criterion to encode in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos audio, and unfortunately no other audio options. It just is only the Dolby Atmos audio, which is great, with caveats. Because it is very immersive and everything. It's a musical. You want kind of a big sound to everything. But it is nice to have the original sound as an option. And at this point, with other boutique labels giving multiple audio options, it kind of gets a little bit frustrating that Criterion Collection does not always give the original audio option whenever there's like a stereo option in regards to like a 5.1 option. But this one is even more kind of egregious because the Atmos track is not perfect in that there are some musical cues that when Universal were remixing the track they did not mix them correctly, and there's some things omitted. Like there's at least 2 lines that I know of where there's supposed to be lines of dialogue or like a word of dialogue that are omitted, like before the very emotional climax of Home. Like you see Diana Ross mouthing the word home, but it doesn't come out. And there's another example before that with 2 characters talking where there's smoke obscuring them, so you can't see it perfectly. But if you're familiar with this movie, you'll know that there are like a couple of lines missing of dialogue. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully, I'll try to alert Criterion to this, and hopefully others will too. And maybe we can get a replacement disc and get Universal to actually do a proper mix of this. But it's not super distracting. It's just a couple of lines, but it is important to have things as correct as possible. So while I wouldn't say it completely spoils the release, it is something that I think should be corrected because other releases from other labels have been corrected for less, and I think it should probably be fixed. But the Dolby Vision transfer, the video portion itself looks fantastic. This is a film that has never looked so vibrant on physical media. And just judging by what I've seen from the past, the Dolby Vision really enriches some of the bold colors that are in the production design of this one. We are entering the land of Oz, so there's a lot of really big, like like emeralds and like reds and stuff, and yellow, like gold, like Yellow Brick Road and stuff. That's very important to really just like saturate the screen in a really formidable way, and I think the Dolby Vision really enhances that. So if the audio is perfect, I would say this is a pretty knockout release. With those few caveats, there's a few shortcomings. You do also get some special features, which I haven't mentioned yet, which includes a commentary track and a couple of interviews. Close to perfection, just shy of it. Hopefully the Criterion Collection can fix those missing audio elements. But otherwise, it's a really great release of The Wiz, and I think people will be pretty happy with this one who's a fan of this. And if you have been kind of hesitant to check it out due to its reputation, I think it is worth a watch because there's a lot of things that it does very well. Even if it's not a 10 out of 10 movie, it is a very good movie. So The Wiz from the Criterion Collection, still worth checking out. Also from the Criterion Collection is the 4K, unlikely 4K debut of 32 short films about Glenn Gould. So this is a movie probably not many people know of. I didn't really know of it before they announced this. It's based on a Canadian composer, Glenn Gould, his life, and it's told in a kind of an unlikely, like a unusual way. The best way I could kind of compare it at this point would kind of be similar to like the Bob Dylan version, like I'm Not There from Todd Haynes. Even though there's not different people taking over the life of Glenn, you mostly just have Colm Feore. You do get kind of a mixture of like semi-documentary and narrative, like snapshots, or it says 32 short films. Like you get little slices of life of Glenn Gould, which do not necessarily, if you don't have a pre-existing knowledge of him, it won't give you like a deep well of like what he's done like biographically, but you get a little bit more of an insight into how his mind works and stuff, which I think is a little more interesting as a biopic, which we get a lot of just like, oh, they were born and they did this and they did this. And while that can be fun when executed well, I think artistically this is a little bit more enriching. And this is from Francois Girard. And Francois, his approach to this, I think really made this a little bit more intellectually stimulating. And even for someone who doesn't know this composer, it really kind of gave me an insight to who he was as a person. And it is a pretty entertaining movie itself. So even if you don't know the subject, you could probably just treat him as a fictional person and still be entertained. But this is a pretty solid movie overall. This is a 4K release, like I said. It's a 4K master from the 35mm interpositive in SDR, so standard dynamic range, no HDR. And while people may be disappointed by the lack of HDR, usually I'm still happy when a film can get a 4K in SDR, just because I know that it is being presented in its most accurate form possible as how it is presented right now. So you're getting less compression artifacts and black crush and all that kind of stuff. Everything's just kind of a little bit more fine-tuned, even if you don't have the benefit of HDR. But it does look very nice, even with like a slightly expanded color gamut. And then you get the DTS 5.1 sound. And this has been approved by the director who supervised this with the Criterion Collection. You do get a commentary track and some interviews on this one. So overall, really solid release for a film that many people probably haven't heard of, but I think it's worth checking out if you're a fan of what the Criterion Collection puts out, or just interested in a different take on the biopic format. And now we are going to go down a long road with Vinegar Syndrome. And these first few titles that I'm going to show you from the Vinegar Syndrome label itself, not their partner labels, those are not able to be purchased right now from the Vinegar Syndrome's website because June is partner labels month. So everything that is available, they are focusing only on the partner labels. So these titles were revealed during their halfway to Black Friday sale at the end of May. And they will be back on that website again once July hits, or you can get these from some of the boutique label websites like Diabolic or Orbit and stuff. You can put an order in there, but just letting you know the availability. But they're one of their big Black Friday title, halfway to Black Friday titles was The Golden Child from Eddie Murphy. This is from their Paramount license. This is a really nice package. I reviewed. Well, first I want to say they shipped this out with a corrected disc. This is actually the old disc. I kind of switched it out, but they caught a error in their pressing that they just kind of like slipped in here. In regards to like what I was talking about with a potential replacement program in one of the titles earlier, this is a company that realized what they did wrong and they fixed it even before customers knew there was a problem, which is always great if there is going to be a problem. But this kind of opens up here. As I was saying, this was released on Blu-ray finally, I think back in 2021 from Paramount through their Paramount Presents label from a 4K restoration, and I reviewed that at the time. There's some nice essays in there. It's cool to see this get a 4K upgrade, especially from Vinegar Syndrome, who you can always count on to deliver a quality product. So this kind of comes out here. There's kind of pops out there. You get a nice slip cover. Here's both sides here. And this is the reversible cover art. You can reverse it to have this cover on the other side. I just kind of did it already to cut down on time. And then you get 2 discs, 4K and Blu-ray disc, each from the same 4K master. This is a new 4K master conducted by Vinegar Syndrome for a 4K restoration from the original camera negative. And it looks pretty fantastic. I'm not going too much into the plot of this one. This is more Eddie Murphy going more mystical because I have written extensively about it. But this 4K upgrade is fantastic. It's a really nice upgrade, nice natural film grain intact. Really nice bold colors, deep black levels. The Dolby Vision presentation looks really, really great on this one, and I think this is about as great as the title can possibly look. There are some special effects in this one that are dated, but that's inherent to the movie itself. It's not a problem with the picture quality, and some of those kind of effect shots will look a little bit less crisp than the rest of the movie, but that's just with how the material, like, it kind of blends pretty well overall. But yeah, it looks great. 5.1 in the original stereo sound sounded really nice. I prefer the stereo. And then you get there was 2 featurettes on the previous Paramount Presents Blu-ray, very short, not too informative. You get those on this one, but you get some new special features, including a commentary track and various interviews with the producers and stuff and special effects people. Some really nice lengthy interviews that I think fans will appreciate. So if you're an Eddie Murphy fan and you want the Golden Child in the best quality possible, this 4K release from Vinegar Syndrome is beautiful on your shelf, but it's also beautiful on your television as well. So make sure to check that out. While I did not get the absolute deluxe editions of these next few titles, they have their own deluxe editions as well, but they are all worth getting with their upgrades. And the first one is a heroic effort to restore Jade from director William Friedkin and writer Joe Esterhaus, who did the likes of Basic Instinct, which I covered a couple months ago, and then Sliver, which Vinegar Syndrome released at the beginning of this year, which I covered at that point. And now we got Jade, which is admittedly probably the least of those trio of movies that I've talked about, but it is one that I think maybe is unfairly discussed or evaluated due to what has been available. And what we get here is both the theatrical cut, which has mostly been available, and the director's cut, which I don't think has been available since maybe the VHS era. And Vinegar Syndrome has taken the steps to try to locate that material, restore it back as meticulously as possible to get William Friedkin's preferred director's cut, and presented for the first time in HD especially, but in 4K, and looking about as great as you could expect it. And I'll get into the video side a little bit, but the nuts and bolts of this is just kind of you have David Caruso playing a cop who's investigating a murder, because that happens at the beginning of the movie. A very powerful person is murdered who is connected to even more powerful people like government officials and stuff. And they all kind of connect back to this call girl named Jade, a codename Jade. And he's trying to figure out who she is. Maybe he knows her already due to like some people that he knows in his life that might have double lives and all that kind of stuff. And you're just really going down this rabbit hole of like, who is Jade? And who is like in danger of being killed next, and who committed this murder, all this kind of stuff. So you have David Caruso, like I said, Linda Fiorentino, who people might know from Dogma, Chaz Palminteri, and this, like as I said, this isn't the strongest Esther House script or movie, but it also isn't the strongest William Friedkin movie, but there is a lot to appreciate about this one, and especially in its director's cut form, because whenever I compare the director's cut to the theatrical cut, I can understand where people would be very underwhelmed by the theatrical cut, because the director's cut runs about like 13 minutes longer, but some of the character development, especially of Linda Fiorentino, was just kind of absent. She kind of dropped off out of the movie, kind of at some point, plot wise, not like off the set. And so seeing some of those scenes reinstated to keep her kind of more integral to the plot and like give her just a little bit more to work with, and have some of those tendrils between plots, and like there's not so much like as many like rough cuts from like A. It doesn't go from like A to C. You get A, B, C. Like it's a more flow, like a steady flow of the movie. That director's cut, while not perfect, definitely improves upon it quite a bit, in my opinion. It really just makes it feel like a more well-rounded movie. It's still ridiculous. In comparison to those other two movies, it's much less overtly like sexual in terms of like nudity. I've heard it described by one of the people in this special features as more kinky than sexual, and I kind of understand that, where it's like a very kink driven movie in terms of like dominance and like sexual like power being exerted over people. There's not as much nudity as those other two movies, but it's still it's a erotic thriller. That's what you're in the genre for. You do get some of that. It's just plays it a little bit differently. If you've seen Jade before and you're open to trying it again and you think it maybe had potential, try the director's cut, because I think it is a better movie overall. But both movies are given the 4K presentation. It's most of the material is based from a 4K restoration of the original 35mm camera negative. Some of the material unique to the director's cut was derived from a 35mm interpositive, and there are two shots that they could not find material from that would be good for an HD transfer, so it kind of has more of a standard definition look, but they tried to mitigate those as much as possible to kind of smooth things over. So there's very, very brief shots where into moments where you'll kind of see a downturn in terms of quality, but it's so quick, and the Vinegar Syndrome team obviously went to heroic lengths to restore this as much as possible, that you can kind of forgive them, and just for having this cut in 4K is pretty fantastic. In Dolby Vision looks very nice. These are beautiful transfers, and I'm really impressed with how these turned out. You do get 5.1 and 2.0 audio, and you get some good special features, including a commentary track, some interviews, including with Joe Esterhaus, some featurettes, vintage interviews, all that kind of stuff. So while not the most acclaimed title, I think Jade is ready for a reevaluation due to this 4K release. It's not perfect, but it's a solid erotic thriller in its director's cut form, in my opinion. And definitely worth checking out for erotic thriller fans or William Friedkin fans. It's been treated very well on 4K. And if you thought the amount of care that they put into Jade was impressive, you'll definitely be impressed by the work that they put into Dirty Work from director Bob Saget, the late great Bob Saget, with Norm Macdonald and Artie Lang. This is one I'd actually never seen before. I've always seen the cover, of course, but It's just one that kind of had eluded me. You got the alternate cover art here. But this one, Norm Macdonald playing a guy who is trying to earn some quick money to get a potential heart transplant for his friend's dad, who he's just recently learned is actually his dad as well. And in order to do that, they start a business to do people's dirty work, which is basically take revenge on people and everything. But it's a very crude movie, but it's also very funny. There was actually moments that I was laughing out loud pretty consistently on certain things. There's some stuff that's definitely pretty tasteless by today's standards, but I admit to having a pretty solid time, even not having like a nostalgic view on this movie, having never seen it before. There's things about it I thought were really funny. There's things that obviously I thought just did not land on these days, but overall, pretty funny movie, and I enjoyed it. But so many great like cameos or like small bit parts, like with like Chris Farley, Chevy Chase, just so many people throughout, like Dave Koechner, that you'll find in this movie that kind of just you kind of wonder why this doesn't have like a bigger cult following than already does. It obviously does, because this sold really well during its Black Friday, like halfway to Black Friday, but that's also probably because it has the now mythical dirtier cut, which is now included in this one, in which there's a great article that goes into everything that Vinegar Syndrome went like into restoring this meticulously to get it as close to this alternate cut as possible. And because this movie was released as a PG-13 and it was never really intended as much, like, or they were hoping that the MPAA would like be more lenient on certain things, like certain gags that they just could not pull off. So we have all of this footage and audio that has been reconstructed into this dirtier cut, which isn't really much longer than the movie that much. It's by like a minute or so. But there's so much unique footage, like audio wise and stuff, that kind of like you get kind of alternate line takes and little things here and there that kind of change up the movie enough that it's really cool that you're able to get both of these cuts in 4K. There's even like a third version, like a work print version that is included amongst the special features, which runs about almost 2 hours long, which is basically, it's in standard definition, like videotape, like very bad quality, but it's there for people who want to see it. Just like if you just want to see everything that was like kind of considered for the movie, that's also a very cool perk for fans. But to have both this like theatrical cut that people have always known and this dirtier cut, which it gives as close to a facsimile of what they wanted to release in the first place, is pretty cool. And the dirtier cut, it blends pretty well in terms of footage and everything. The audio is where it kind of comes up understandably short on some of these alternate line readings, where they blend it quite well, but you will hear a little, like, the source that they had for the audio was not always like a pristine, clean source that of like the highest quality. So you'll hear little like audio discrepancies here and there when listening to the dirtier cut. But I think having the cut in existence is much more important than like not having it, but because it doesn't have like perfect audio. It's still like the theatrical cut sounds great, and most of it does sound great in the dirtier cut, but just there will hear a little bit of variance, which is understandable considering the source. But in Dolby Vision, looks great. Everything transfer wise, 4K restoration looks really, really good. You do get the 5.1 version and 2.0 in the theatrical cut, 2.0 only in the dirtier cut, once again because of the sources that they had to work with. And then you also get 2 commentary tracks, 1 commentary track for each cut. You do get a 63-minute making of documentary. You get 11 different interviews with different people involved with the movie, including the aforementioned David Koechner. You get the assembly cut. This is packed with special features. So you get the movie on Blu-ray, a special Blu-ray and dirtier cut and the theatrical cut on Blu-ray, and then both on 4K in one version, and tons of special features. So Vinegar Syndrome, once again, going above and beyond to rescue a title that fans probably never thought would be possible, but they did it with dirty work, and it's very much worth the money if you are interested in this at all. While there wasn't nearly as much painstaking assembling of mythical cuts for this one, this is just a great 4K release, an upgrade. George A. Romero's Stephen King tale, The Dark Half. This is a movie that I actually watched for the first time last year, and I was kind of mixed on it, but I was definitely up for checking it out again. So I was glad to be able to do that on 4K. Here's the alternate, the reversible cover art here. So this is, like I said, a Stephen King tale, starring Timothy Hutton as a writer. Surprise, surprise for Stephen King. He's a writer who's tortured, and he's kind of has a pseudonym that he writes kind of more of his pulpy novels that are actually the big sellers, but he kind of wants to focus on more kind of intellectually stimulating work. And whenever he tries to kind of cut ties with this kind of alter ego, it ends up manifesting in real life, and some of his stories that he was writing kind of starts to come to life, where you have people getting killed by his alter ego in a literalized form. And there's a little bit more to that, but I won't kind of delve into all the nuts and bolts of the narrative. But this is one I wish it was a little bit better than it was. I think it's solid, and I did like it more on its second viewing. I think what really kind of hurts this one is its runtime. It is just over 2 hours long, and you really start to feel the length at times whenever it just kind of gets repetitive in some of its plot mechanics. But the idea of a man battling with his actualized alter ego is pretty interesting. And there are some great set pieces in here. And a solid ensemble cast, all that kind of good stuff. And George A. Romero, he's a hell of a director, obviously. He just can't shape this perfectly into a more concise narrative. I know Stephen King, he's a dense writer. He has big tomes that you want to kind of jam everything in. But I don't think there was a lot new being added to justify the longer runtime. If there was new things constantly being added to the lore that really helped flesh us out, I think maybe that 2 hour runtime would be justified. Otherwise, it just it drags a little bit. But I still think it's a solid movie overall. And if you're a fan, you will want to check out this 4K. It's a really nice upgrade. This is from a 4K restoration of 35mm camera negative in Dolby Vision. Looks incredible. It's so Vinegar Syndrome, they really knocked it out of the park, as always, but especially on these titles this month. On 4K, you get the original audio on this one. That sounds great. You get a commentary track, you get some interviews, you get some featurettes, but overall this is the best it's ever looked and sounded. And if you're a fan, this 4K from Vinegar Syndrome is really great. This was not the only upgrade from another boutique label. We have the 4K upgrade of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which was previously released by Scream Factory. I have that released, and this is a really nice upgrade. About a woman kind of recently out of kind of a mental institution who's trying to live more of a quiet life with her husband out in the countryside, but whenever they arrive, there is a mysterious girl there who is kind of squatting there, and they decide to let her stay with them. But then mysterious things start happening, and Jessica starts to question her own sanity. And this is really a slow burn kind of dread movie. This isn't if you want kind of nonstop thrills, I think you'll be kind of disappointed by this. But overall, if you kind of a gentle build of dread and terror, I think this works quite well, and I was I think this worked even better on the second time for me. Here's the reversible cover art for this one. It's just a perfect spooky season movie if you're getting ready for Halloween in a couple months. I think this is really good viewing for that one. And this 4K restoration, which does come from the 35mm camera negative, it's a 4K restoration in Dolby Vision, looks incredible. Once again, this has very autumnal vibes and stuff, so like the leaves on the trees and everything looks great. Everything is just kind of dialed in with the natural film grain intact. Everything looks really, really good. Original DTS 2.0 audio. You get 2 commentary tracks for this one and 4 interviews. Overall, really great release from Vinegar Syndrome of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Really great release. And then we have some cinematograph titles. And the first of which is a 4K upgrade of Richard Gere in Breathless, the kind of remake of Jean-Luc Godard's classic movie. This is a really nice package, as always, from Cinematograph, in which Richard Gere plays kind of a criminal who's kind of reckless. He's kind of like high energy, and on the way to reconnect with a girl that he had some time with in Vegas, he ends up accidentally killing a cop, and he ends up kind of evading the law, all while trying to reconnect with this girl who's a French foreign exchange student, and who has to decide if she's wanting to get involved in his kind of whole outlaw being after they kind of have their little moment together. Richard Gere's very good in this. He's very unhinged, but he's very frustrating as a character, but he's Richard Gere in his prime, and he's so charming that you can kind of understand stuff. His co-star in this one, I can't remember her name right now, but she starred in this movie called Year of the Jellyfish, which she was really great in. But she does a really good job, and overall this has a very different take on Breathless as a text. This is very kind of neon soaked, warm, like just kind of just hyperactive, and it's very energetic. And if you like Richard Gere, definitely worth checking this one out. It's a solid movie, and it's 4K. While a little bit frustrating for me personally, because just last year I picked up the Blu-ray release from Fun City Editions. Now to see this get a proper 4K upgrade from Cinematograph, at least that one has some exclusive special features that weren't carried over, so it's not a complete loss. But the Cinematograph, that old Blu-ray from Fun City Edition was from an Enter Positive. This is from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative. It does look fantastic. With this movie, visuals are a very strong part of its identity, and it looks really, really good in Dolby Vision. You do get the original DTS 2.0 audio. You do get 2 commentary tracks. You get 2 interviews. You get a video essay. So really nice special features. Great packaging. I showed off the booklet inside, as always, with these essays. Just a knockout release for Breathless. So I now have 2 versions in my collection, but I'm not mad at it because this one is so good from Cinematograph. Justin LaLiberty, as always, has outdone himself. And he's done a really good job with this one. And this next title, which is new to Blu-ray. And I think the first documentary from Cinematograph. This is from Jonathan Demme's Swimming to Cambodia with Spalding Gray. This is the performer talking, doing kind of a one-man show about his time kind of around the filming of The Killing Fields. This was, if you've ever seen Jonathan Demme, his Talking Heads movie, Stop Making Sense, this is kind of like, you get Demme's sensibility of, but while capturing this live event that's kind of like has its own energy, but Demi kind of brings something extra to it that's beyond just like a man sitting. It is mostly a man sitting at a table telling like very interesting stories, but they make it cinematic in a sense, and there's like sound effects that go along with it, and everything. Yeah, they're just very interesting stories, and you really kind of get like you're very engaged in all of this, and I quite enjoyed it. This may not be something you're like I need this in high definition, but it looks fantastic in high definition. This does come from a 2K scan of the 2K restoration of the original camera negative. Looks terrific. I love how this the grain is natural and resolves well. You can see all kinds of details on Spalding Gray's face and his clothes that he's wearing and stuff. And the sound comes through really great as well, which if you're just talking the whole time, you're gonna need great sound, and it sounds really good. And it sounds like some of the special effects are kind of a little bit more grandiose, which I think adds a pretty cool flavor to things. You do get a commentary track with this one, and an interview, and a couple of podcast episodes with Jonathan Demme and everything. But overall, another knockout release from Cinematograph. So Swimming to Cambodia, really cool release. If it's an atypical release for the line now, but it just shows this line has no bounds. So they've released queer cinema, documentaries, action films, like all kinds of like stuff that's really great. And I'm really happy with what Cinematograph has been putting out, and I'm so excited for what the rest of the year has in store. So yes, these titles from Vinegar Syndrome I just talked about, these are the ones that are not on the website right now because of the partner label month that is going on at this moment in June. But we do have titles that are currently available. And so I'm going to dig in to the Vinegar Syndrome partner labels right now. And these are all the new ones that hit, that I received that hit in June. The first one I'm going to talk about is from one of my favorite partner labels. That is from Cartoona, and it is their release of Cash Cow. They get away a little bit from their usual animation, which they've done a few times. For this film, that it's a documentary set in 2020 during in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, which I know if you hear that, you might be like me and you kind of start to check out when you hear that because you don't want a COVID movie. And I would just say this is not a COVID movie in the traditional sense. It's about a man who's a professional. It's a guy who's a professional actor who he kind of goes camping and trying to figure out what he is going to do with his life, because as he waits for this Domino's commercial that he filmed to hopefully air, which will give him his cash cow, his windfall that he desperately needs. So he's like, but it's during the pandemic and everything's kind of on pause, so he never knows if his commercial is ever going to air, and it's just kind of this recurring thing of him wondering if his Domino's commercial is ever going to air, while at the same time, amongst his like camping and like living his life, kind of a little bit off the grid, he is taking you basically through a pretty thorough history of like Mormonism founder Joseph Smith, and it's a really interesting approach, like for a documentary. Like it has a very like humorous, like kind of, it's earnest, but like a little bit of a sarcastic tone bent to things. If you've seen something like Joe Pera Talks to You, or if you like something like Comedy Bang Bang, I think you'll appreciate what Cash Cow is doing. It wasn't as hilarious as I wanted it to be, but it is very funny. A lot of times it made me chuckle a lot, even if I wasn't laughing out loud consistently. And I learned a lot about Joseph Smith as well, but it has just kind of like a offbeat sense of humor, which I quite appreciated. And yeah, the video quality looks very nice. It's a documentary, self-filmed, that the footage is as good as the location like would allow. Like there's some where he has his camera set up in his car when he's delivering Domino's pizza at one point. He becomes a delivery driver. And so those nighttime shots, you'll get a little bit of like crush and like stuff, but this due to the camera he was using. But overall, this is a good solid HD transfer that mostly avoids like your normal anomalies. And sound is like like the video, as solid as the material that was captured. You do get a commentary track and a couple of featurettes. A couple of things I want to note about this release in particular. This was the only release of the partner labels this month where I could not play this on my main player, which is a Panasonic 4K player. It just would not register the disc for some reason, and it just kept saying like could not recognize the format. I don't know what was going on, but I tried it like 12 times over 2 days, and I had to revert to switching over to my region-free player, Blu-ray player that I keep right beside it, which did play the disc. So this may have an issue with Panasonic players. It could have been my disc. I don't know. Second point I want to say, there was a moment about 57 minutes in where my disc froze and jumped forward in time like 2 minutes. And it could be a issue with the disc itself. I tried it across 2 different players and it happened on both players. I'm going to check with Vinegar Syndrome about getting a replacement disc to see if it is a issue with like maybe a micro scratch or something, or if there is a larger issue. Hopefully there's not. But if you happen to get Cash Cow, let me know if you experience any kind of like jumps in the video around that time. Probably not. It's probably just my copy. Just want to put that out there. So Cash Cow on Blu-ray. It is a good Blu-ray and worth checking out from the partner labels. The next one is a re-release from Film Movement Classics. As with all the partner labels, you can get an option with slipcovers on Vinegar Syndrome's website or select indie retailers like Diabolic. Or you can get them in these standard versions, which I'm showing you. But if you want a slipcover, you can get that. And that is their reason for this particular release of Edward II, which was first released in 2018 from Film Movement Classics. But you can now get it with a slipcover, or it's just now once again in print from Vinegar Syndrome. So this is a film by Derek Jarman. And as with a lot of the titles this month, there is a queer bent. I guess they curated this quite well for Pride Month. So this is about a ruler who ascends to power, takes a lover, a male lover, despite having a wife, and played by Tilda Swinton, and her kind of trying to plot her revenge on him to take him down and out of power and all that kind of good stuff. It's very minimalist. It kind of feels like a shot like on a sound stage. It's a very theatrical-esque play, like execution. I found it a pretty engaging movie. It kind of didn't connect, hook me 100% emotionally, but I appreciated the technical aspects and just kind of the execution of stuff and the acting and everything. Maybe one that I'll appreciate more on a rewatch, but overall it's a pretty solid movie. Edward II. And if you kind of like a more period piece, like costume, intrigue, all that kind of stuff, just more on a minimalistic scale, maybe worth checking out for you. This was given a restoration back in 2018. This is the same exact disc. But it's solid. No major nicks, scratches, anything like that. It holds up very well. I love Tilda Swinton, so it's good to see this, and she looks great in HD. 24-minute documentary on this, and that booklet which I showed you. So Film Movement Classics and Edward II, good release from them. A more modern release, just from the last few years, we have from Film Movement, the main label, Sisi I, which stars Sandra Hüller, who people may know as the Academy Award nominated actress from Anatomy of a Fall. And she plays a woman, I believe she's a Hungarian countess who goes, she kind of is vying to be the lady in waiting for this empress, whose nickname is Sisi. And along the way, she kind of becomes enamored with her, I don't want to compare it directly to this movie because it's very much different. But if you kind of like a Portrait of a Lady on Fire type deal, I think you'll like this one pretty well. It's like a period piece, hidden desires, it's like simmering desires, all that kind of stuff, and just like the little oasis they have when they are off separately, and then whenever other people start getting involved, how feelings start getting hurt and the tensions start escalating and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty long movie at 2 hours and 12 minutes long, but it kept my attention pretty well. And just if you like gorgeous costumes and beautiful landscapes and just great acting and sensuality and desire, all that kind of good stuff, Sisi I think will scratch that itch for you. Great HD transfer from Film Movement. Glad this got an HD upgrade, because it probably would have slipped by my radar otherwise. The DTS 5.1 sounds good. You get a video essay on this and an introduction from I believe the director, overall, nice release from Film Movement of Sisi I. Sandra Hüller is a fantastic actress and very much worth checking out if you loved her work in Anatomy of Fall or Zone of Interest. Another movie from Film Movement that I had on my radar, I was very excited to check this out when it came out a couple years ago, and it didn't come to Blu-ray, it just came to DVD, so I missed out on it. But got to rectify that with Tahara, I believe it is called. This is they say it's Hebrew in their Hebrew class, and that's how I heard it. So Tahara is how I'm going to say it. It is about mainly follows these two girls who are attending the kind of funeral ceremony of a fellow Hebrew school student who has taken her own life. And it is kind of like a day in the life of these two girls and them. Like, no one's really, like, this was kind of like an outcast girl, and people are not always taking it seriously. People react in different ways. They have their own stuff going on. But in the midst of kind of like this grief or simulated grief, or in some of these people's instances, you have these two friends, one of which she's kind of pining after this guy who's also in the class, and she's convinced there's like a scene early on in the movie where she's like wondering if she's a good kisser. She finally convinces her friend to kiss her so she can like find out if she's a good kisser, and it really kind of awakens stuff in her and like desiring her friend, and it really kind of becomes like this bubbling kind of like issue of just like the one friend, like played by Rachel Sennett, who's great. If you've seen her in Shiva Baby or Bodies, 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 or Bottoms, which I talked about recently, she plays a similar type of character. She's kind of oblivious. She's kind of wrapped up in her own stuff and doesn't even realize how she is kind of very careless with people's feelings and just not. She's really just kind of very self-motivated, and just how that kind of, like, there's some very funny moments in this movie, but there's also a lot of like heartache in this movie, and just like a lot of raw emotions of just like you're young and you're discovering stuff about yourself, all that kind of stuff. And I really found it very compelling. It's not as funny as Rachel Sennett's other movies, like especially Bottoms, which is ridiculous, but ridiculously fun. It is worth checking out for sure. One very odd thing about this one, I mean, I appreciate a bold swing. This is a shot in like a complete square. It's 1:1 aspect ratio, which means there's a lot of black space on a widescreen TV, but it expands out in very key moments. Not very many, but like 5 or 6 moments where like the screen will fill out, but then it'll go back to the square. So it's visually not the most like gorgeous movie, but I think it works for what this movie's trying to do. But just kind of throwing that out there for anyone who might be interested in aspect ratios. But it looks good. The audio, there's a lot of whispering in here, so some of the audio can be a little bit hard to hear. You might want to turn on the subtitles for some. But overall, it's solid sounding release. You get a commentary track with this one with a pretty extensive group of like the director and various members of the craft team. But it's a good supplement, a commentary track, and then you get the booklet and HD transfer, all this stuff. So Tahara, worth checking out if you're a fan of Rachel Sennett. But if you like her, definitely worth checking this one out. With partner label only, we get 2 new labels introduced to the family, which I'm always excited about. The first of which is a studio or indie distributor who I've always really loved, so super excited to see them get added to the partner label family, is Kim Stem's first release of Ma Mère. And this, it is not for the faint of heart. I will just say that. If you are very sensitive to taboo subjects, which I'll be talking about more here in a couple of titles, you'll want to stay far away from this one, because if you get squeamish around like incest and stuff, stay away from this one, because you do have Louis Garrel and Isabelle Huppert as a mother and son who kind of start getting closer after a tragedy strikes their family. And she starts introducing him into kind of like this. She's kind of a wild spirit, as I say. And she kind of starts introducing him to like kind of her like kind of sexual cadre of like friends, and kind of like getting him laid, and really just expanding his like sexual possibilities, and that where that kind of leans, and like his fixations that are very unhealthy to a normal mind, where that kind of leads in their kind of dynamic. It's very shocking, but I find it very engaging. I randomly heard about this movie like 2 months ago on Brett Goldstein's podcast. He was randomly talking about it, and I did not know I was going to be watching this movie anytime soon at that time. So I imagine my surprise when it came onto my radar with this new Blu-ray. But if you're an Isabelle Huppert fan who is not afraid of being a little bit squeamish, if you're not squeamish, Ma Mère, it's super interesting. And I don't know, like I've seen other movies, like the transgressive triple feature from Francois Ozon that I talked about in the past that deals with incest, and just the way that it can be tackled. Like, I don't know, I just find certain movies, like if there's subjects that are obviously horrible, but if you tackle them in a certain way, they can be really interesting cinema. And I found Ma Mère to be very interesting. Tons of nudity and screwed up situations, but if you're not scared away by that, Ma Mère, I think, is worth checking out for the more adventurous cinephiles. This has been newly restored for its 20th anniversary, I believe, or it was restored in the past few years. And it looks really nice in HD, and sounds good as well, the original French. You get an interview with the director from recent years and a trailer. But very bold first release from Kim Stem, but really glad to have this on Blu-ray. Very much worth checking out for the freaks out there. Then the second new partner label is Glass Eye Picks, and that is Automatons. This is a very, very low budget effort. I believe it's shot on 8mm, and this is it's kind of like I said, a very low budget sci-fi tale of a girl who's like one of the last surviving people that she like is aware of, and she kind of like is fighting some of the last like bastion of resistance, and she has like there's like robots and battles and stuff. It's a lot going on with like not a lot of like budget put forth. Like what they are able to accomplish on this micro budget film is pretty interesting, just through like innovative camera techniques and stuff. I'll be the first to admit, I was reading like a description of this whenever in like kind of early, like some skimming reviews, and I really thought this would not be for me at all, and I was kind of dreading watching it. It happens, but I try to not go in with too much of a preconceived notion. But I did end up liking this overall. I didn't think it was perfect, and I think it does. Even at like just like an hour 23, it did feel a little bit long in some respects. But if they had given just a little bit more like character development in certain respects, I probably would have connected even more. But overall, I really respect what they accomplished here, and I did find it engaging. I will watch it again, and which is, I can't say for all movies from the partner labels I talk about, but this is surprised me, and I think it is a interesting first one from Glass Eye Picks, and I'm open to seeing what they have coming up in future months. But we're checking out for fans of micro budget cinema and like something a little sci-fi tinged. It's an interesting one. This is from a 2K remaster, and it's a really nice looking film. I can compare it to something like Darren Aronofsky's Pi, where it's very kind of lo-fi, like run and gun. So it's a very rough aesthetic, but it looks very good and within its kind of roughness. You do get a commentary track, behind the scenes footage, documentaries, interviews, lots of special features with this first release. So very cool with what they put together with Automatons. My next big bold release from IFC Films is Enter the Void. From Gaspar Noé. The Provocateur, you get both the director's cut and the theatrical cut on each separate disc. This was previously released, I believe just one cut of the film was released from MPI, and then Arrow Video released a version overseas, but for those, and that was also only Blu-ray. But now we get like a fully like stacked release ourselves. From what I can tell, I don't have those previous releases, but from what I've seen Justin LaLiberty from Vinegar Syndrome talk about online, they've done kind of a refinement of the master and to make this look as good as possible. And I think it looks as good as this probably can look. You get the director's cut in the director preferred 25 frames per second, and theatrical cut is 24 frames per second, which is traditional. I didn't notice any discrepancy with like how the video output with the 25 frame per second director's cut. Everything looked solid to me. But this movie, it's very wild, long as hell. It's like 2.5 hours long in its director's cut form. But it's a lot of just like Noé. It says like a exploration of life, death, and everything in between. A lot of first person camera movements and floating over cities and going into different spaces to kind of like act as a voyeur with people, and then flashing back to earlier points in life. And it's very kind of metaphysical craziness. A lot of people will probably find it tedious and boring at points, but it is definitely a unique viewing experience that kind of sucks you in. Very provocative, lots of like sexuality and like violence, and it's shocking. It's Gaspar Noé, but it's hypnotic and very much worth a watch just to kind of expand your cinematic palette, to know like if you can be into something like this. If you're like similar to Ma Mère, but in a different way. If you're an adventurous cinephile, I think you owe it to yourself to see how you react to Enter the Void. You may hate it. It's very likely you'll hate it, but you might love it. And I know a lot of people do love it, and I would be open to watching this again. I will say that. Like I said, the video looks solid. Audio sounds good. You do get a commentary track, video essay, deleted scenes, featurettes, lots of good stuff here. Some exclusive special features to this one. And yeah, it's good release from IFC Films. It's good to have both cuts in HD domestically, and just as refined as possible to make this the definitive release stateside. And you may think, like, it's not 4K, so how can it be definitive? With the way this is shot aesthetically, I 4K could probably enhance this, but I just can't really see the benefit of a 4K for this movie in particular. Just the way it's shot and its aesthetic, I just can't see it being a major upgrade. So I think Blu-ray will probably be the best we'll ever get for this one. Mark this down and tell me I'm wrong when it gets a 4K release. But I think just by how it was shot and everything, I think Blu-ray is it. And this is a good Blu-ray for Enter the Void. For my final partner label title, not my final title, but my final partner label title from ETR Media. Unfortunately, the only like stinker for me this partner label month is Samurai Priest Vampire Hunter. I love ETR Media, but they occasionally will release like a narrative film that it just isn't for me. And this is an example of that, where it's kind of like a low budget movie where you do have this like this vampire hunter who's samurai priest tracking down these vampires and trying to take them out while there's like a scarcity of blood and there's people being turned and like things are kind of happening that like there's like a vampire virus basically going around the community and things are going to happen. There's a lot of stuff going on. The thing I like about this the most is like there's some creativity and some of like the practical effects that I really appreciated, and there's some humor that I think is decent, but as like a almost like so bad it's good, it doesn't really work on that level for me. I just found myself just kind of almost wishing it would end just because it's not my flavor of movie. I just don't like badly constructed movies, like poor acting, all that kind of stuff. Like I don't go for that level of genre, and it just didn't work for me. I just didn't love it. But if you like kind of like trashy movies with like bad acting and stuff, maybe you'll like it just wasn't like a so bad it's good for me. Shot on Super 16mm, which gives it a little bit of a cool identity, which I'll commend it for. But outside of some of those technical, like I said, like practical effects and the footage and everything, it wasn't quite for me. But if you are interested, it is a good Blu-ray release, good HD transfer of that 16mm. 2 commentary tracks for this one, some featurettes and deleted scenes. Yeah. ETR Media's Samurai Priest Vampire Hunter. Very cheesy, not for me, but might be for you, who knows. Cleansing that for me with some real samurai, or at least some interesting Japanese cinema. We have a Shaw Brothers twofer with the Exact Revenge set from Eureka, which includes the Eunuch and Deadly Knives. The Deadly Knives. So it's a 2-pack centered on revenge. Surprise, surprise for Shaw Brothers. So you have like 2 different stories of people. Like the Eunuch is a man who's like wronged and takes revenge and has to like track down the surviving members of this family in order to get his revenge. And Deadly Knives involves like a couple who like the woman's dad is not the best dude, and like there's like all kinds of like heightened emotions and like trying to figure out who she should be loyal to and all kinds of stuff within this revenge tale. If you like Shaw Brothers stuff, these are another 2 good outings. And Eureka always does a nice job. They're pretty entertaining movies, and you do get HD restorations provided by Celestial Pictures. All of these look pretty good. No major qualms with the video side of things. No lingering scratches, anything like that. You do get a English dub of the Deadly Knives, but original audio only with the Eunuch, but each has their original audio. You do get a commentary track for each movie. You get a visual essay that encompasses both movies. And just, overall, Eureka It's just one of the labels doing great service for Shaw Brothers movies, and this Exact Revenge set is worth your time if you're a fan. But heading over to Hong Kong, sticking with Eureka though, we had the release of Hong Kong 1941, which has the great Chow Yun-fat in it. And this is set during World War II, where you have some Hong Kong residents trying to fortify themselves during the Japanese occupation during World War II and trying to fight back. So just the same reversible cover art. And there's kind of like a little bit of a love triangle at the center of things too. But it's just like a resistance tale to occupation. And overall, pretty entertaining outing. Some good action sequences, some decent romance. It's not the strongest aspect of this, but it's a good mixture of kind of like melodrama and action. If you like Chow Yun-fat, it's very much worth a watch. You also got Celia Yip and Alex Mann. This comes from a 4K restoration, and it has the original Cantonese and an English dub. You get a commentary track, you get a appreciation piece, and a couple of interviews and stuff. Really loaded release. Nice one from Eureka for this. Just another, like, their command of Asian cinema is beyond what most labels do, and this is really a great release from them of Hong Kong 1941. So worth checking out. Another one of my absolute favorite labels. We had the first 4K release from Radiance Films, and that is Todd Solondz Palindromes. So as I was speaking about my mayor earlier in like controversial taboo topics, Todd Solondz, he's one of one, and he's definitely pushes boundaries and makes people uncomfortable. And this is more of the same, where you have a young teenage girl who dreams of becoming pregnant, and she sets off on a journey to do so. And she has parents played by Ellen Barkin and Richard Mazer. Here's the reversible art here. While she goes on this journey to try to get what she wants, she is played by a number of, like, pretty much every segment there's another actor or actress playing her. This is this girl and like this girl, they're the same character, but it's just Todd Solondz really just being inventive, and you really it's there's a lot going on here. And if you get understandably uncomfortable around like anything involving like children and sexuality and pedophilia and stuff, or even like mentioning of it, you want to stay away from this one. But his acerbic point of view, while deeply uncomfortable, is very interesting to navigate, and he's just kind of one of the great like shock like auteurs and stuff. There's probably a reason he hasn't gotten funding for a movie in quite some time. Just no studio is willing to like put up money for what he's doing. But what we got back in his heyday was interesting. This is probably my least favorite of the movies I've seen from him so far, but I did find stuff to find interesting, and I'll probably watch it again at some point. It just has a very acerbic sense of humor that I appreciate. This comes from a 4K restoration conducted by MoMA. And this is an SDR. It was originally reported this would be in Dolby Vision HDR, but the master that Radiance was given was SDR, and they issued a statement online to that effect. So this has probably ended up not being the best title to enter the 4K space in, because there's actually with how it was shot, like on the cameras that were used back in like 2004 when this was released, it's not like the sharpest looking movie. It looks good and it looks great, like solid in 4K, but it looks like a really, really good Blu-ray instead of like a 4K. So I think a lot of people are probably slightly underwhelmed for the first 4K release from Radiance, but I'm sure that the future ones will be like even better. And this is a good release, I want to say that, but it's just as a 4K, it's not like a showcase of what the format can do, but it is a good SDR release of that one. I think most people will overall be pleased. You do get the original DTS 5.1, sounds good. You get some interviews, including with Todd Solondz, and a video essay. So a controversial movie, to put it lightly, but Palindromes, it's been given a good release from Radiance Films. So if you're a fan of Solondz and his warped sense of humor and outlook on life, Palindromes, it's a good release for it. Heading over to MVD Entertainment and their release of Terminus, which is a French film that from a French filmmaker that was dubbed into English and has not been seen like in decades. I don't even think this was released on VHS from what I've read. And it's kind of like has a little bit of a Mad Max flavor. You have, with a little bit of Death Race 2000, you have people in this like kind of race to win this money. They had to go through all these, they're trying to reach a location that no one's ever reached to like claim this money. And they're like squaring off against like this super genius, and like there's some nefarious powers that are kind of pulling the strings, trying to make sure no one reaches the end point. And then you have like Karen Allen in here, that she kind of starts off the movie in like this big kind of like weaponized vehicle that's like has AI, like a smart AI companion to them, and just like her journey and like connecting with other people who can like try to help her along to get to Terminus and everything. And like pretty solid action movie. I think it definitely didn't deserve to be out of fashion for decades. This release from MVD Entertainment is similar to what Vinegar Syndrome was doing in rescuing certain cuts of movies. So you have the theatrical cut on here, which runs about like 82 minutes, I believe. It's an hour and 23 minutes. And then you have the original French cut was an hour 55 minutes. So over 30 more minutes of footage is in the extended French cut. And it really does just make this a more well-rounded movie. As I was talking about with Jade, and how that made the movie a lot better. If you've only seen the truncated U.S. cut of Terminus, check out the French version, because it does make things a little bit more poetic at points, and just like make more sense, and everything's not as like choppy and everything. And the French cut looks better. The theatrical cut, it's okay, but you'll still see some lingering lines, and it just doesn't look as meticulously restored as the French version, which seems to have been restored by Studio Canal, and is definitely the way to go. But you have both versions on here. The French version is also in 2.35 by 1, whereas the US version is 1.78 by 1. So you have two different aspect ratios depending on which version you watch. You get a 50-minute making of featurette and an interview with the director. This is a very impressive release from MVD Entertainment. They've done a really nice job with this. The video's quality is good. There's some small anomalies still even after the restoration, but it all looks good. And the French cut is only in French, and the English cut is only in English. So just be aware of that, with English subtitles optional. MVD Entertainment, good job with this one. Another, I think this is an Italian film. Italian horror, going over to Raro Video. We have Alien Terror, which is just an alien movie about aliens that arrive and can... It's kind of a ripoff of like Ridley Scott's Alien, where these aliens can get inside you, and once they do, they can make you explode. There's a lot of gnarly gore and just like face exploding, head exploding, body, just stuff's going on. And most of this takes place within the confines of a cave, but then whenever they're outside of the cave, there's still creepy stuff going on. Overall, solid alien movie if you're interested in Italian horror. This is a good sci-fi horror movie. This has a commentary track. You get both an English dub and the original Italian. You get an interview with Eli Roth, who's a fan of this movie. So overall, solid release from Rare Video. The transfer looks nice. The original audio sounds good. The English audio, not always the best dubbing, but it's passable. But yeah, good release for this one of Alien Terror. The last movie I'm talking about is from Milestone Films and their release of The Annihilation of Fish. So this is from director Charles Burnett, who I talked about a few months ago with the release of The Killer of Sheep from the Criterion Collection. This is one of his later movies that also has kind of been not the most readily available since its release, but it's finally got a restoration. It's a really interesting movie which stars James Earl Jones and Lynn Redgrave. And it also has Margaret Kidder in here. But both James Earl Jones and Lynn Redgrave are both people who are suffering some form of mental illness. And like James Earl Jones, he is a man who kind of like wrestles an invisible demon who he kind of like literally wrestles a invisible demon that kind of like follows him around and stuff. And he's just recently been like kind of kicked out of the mental institution he's been staying at just because bureaucratic stuff, and he kind of like goes to settle down in an apartment where also Lynn Redgrave, who believes that she is like married to this long dead 17th 18th century French poet. She shows up, but they kind of start like bonding with one another, and like while still dealing with their own kind of mental shortcomings, they start to form a relationship and start growing. And it's a really beautiful film, and it's not over. They don't overplay the mental illness aspect of things, but I think it's very sensitively handled. And James Earl Jones and Lynn Redgrave give amazing performances. Surprise, surprise. But it's a really tender movie, and while some may be a little bit uncomfortable by like the mental illness aspect, I think it's handled pretty respectfully. And overall, Charles Burnett is 2 for 2 in my opinion. This has been given a nice 4K restoration from Milestone Films. Looks beautiful on Blu-ray. Everything grain resolves well. Everything looks good. Sounds great. You get some special features, including a commentary track, a short film from Charles Burnett, a Q&A, all kinds of stuff in here. So Annihilation of Fish from Milestone. Very good release. And finally, we have our biggest release. And it is literally our biggest release. I think it might be the biggest box set released on Blu-ray to date, disc count-wise. And I'm talking about Universal's release of Murder, She Wrote, the complete series. Yes, the entire series of Murder, She Wrote. Each season given its own case, and thankfully no stacked disc. So this is 12 seasons, 264 episodes, 4 TV movies, a Magnum PI crossover, special features. And I'll go through these as quickly as possible, but I'll just show you an example of like how this is. So this is season 1 here. This is the case. And what I like how they did this. So you have a kind of thing that comes off here. It kind of sticks here. So you get these 2 discs here, not overlapping, but just like snapped into place. The same happens here. So you get the 5 disc here, all in a very concise packaging. So that's season 1. So I'll go through the rest, but I'm not going to go like through each like hinge here. So season 2. That's the disc color. So Murder, She Wrote. Angel Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher, a novelist who also finds herself repeatedly getting involved in like little cozy like crimes and having to figure out who committed these crimes. So she's like an amateur sleuth and novelist. And it's just it's a very cozy, like I said, cozy television show, very comforting, and just like you kind of always know what you're gonna get with this. And it's just it's a lovely show. It's not one that I had much experience with prior to this. I'd seen a few episodes here and there, but getting this set and really being able to dig into it more really makes you appreciate what this series can do. This later seasons aren't quite as strong as like the first 6 or 7 seasons. But it's amazing how long the show is on, and it kept pretty consistent quality. There are so many amazing guest stars here that you might want to, like, if you had someone you loved during this time period, they probably guest starred on Murder, She Wrote. So with a show of this length, as I've talked about on previous like immense box sets, I cannot physically watch 264 episodes. But I have had this set for, I think, almost a month now, like three or 4 weeks. And I've tried to go through this as much as possible. So I've resisted covering this on previous episodes because I just did not think I had gone through it enough. But now I felt it was time to let everyone know what I thought of it. And generally, I think it's a pretty dang amazing release from Universal. The fact that we are getting a show of this scope on Blu-ray is unbelievable. I've tried to sample at least a couple episodes from or more from each season, and tried to just go through things as much as possible. How does this look on Blu-ray? Largely terrific. I think I never would have expected things to look so good in HD, but these have been given a nice restoration through all the seasons. The grain seems to have been mostly left intact. It's a fine layer of grain, but I do spot grain remaining, so it hasn't been DNR'd to hell or anything. I am not as intimately familiar with these episodes as some, so I do not think these are like any like syndicated cuts or anything. I don't know of any music changes or anything. I think, as far as I know, these are completely intact. If you know differently, please let me know. I don't want to spread misinformation, but these seem to be intact. Everything seems to be accounted for and looking good. DTS 2.0 audio, some good special features. Like I said, the Magnum PI stuff. You get a special on like the TV's Greatest Detectives that are included, and everything looks nice and consistent from season to season. I was just very pleased. Like I said, it's a ton to go through. So if there's any small anomalies that pop up sometime whenever people are going through episode by episode in the future, feel free to let me know. I would love to like correct anything. But from what I've sampled, everything looks pretty incredible. And to get this much content and at a fairly reasonable price right now, it's like $150 or less for all these discs. It's pretty incredible, and I think Murder, She Wrote fans will want to see this in the best quality possible. Very pleased with how this looks. It's a iconic series, and I'm excited to one day eventually make it through every episode, but I'm so glad with what I've watched so far, and I'm excited to have it as a part of my collection. But that is my show. I hope you found something that you found interesting. I love doing this every week. Make sure you comment with the title that you're most interested to check out, or titles. Share this with anyone that loves physical media that you think should be in the know about this. I always appreciate any feedback and sharing, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you subscribe to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel and like the video just to make sure you are aware of. I do this every week, and I shoot for Tuesday every week, and I try to be there for you, and I hope that you enjoy what I'm putting out. But I will be back again next week with another great episode. But until next time, enjoy these movies.
Excuse me, have a plane to catch? Come on, hurry up. Plane, get out of here.
What's this?
It's nothing. Look, just once I want to go back to America. I'm a citizen, okay?
What's this?
What are you looking at?
It just does my heart good to see another American citizen. Hold it right there. No, I'm not crazy. I'm Agent Chandler Gerald from the American Stolen Artifacts Foundation. Everybody, it's okay. I'm the Stolen Artifacts Foundation man. Freddie, get out of my sight. You make me sick, Freddie. I'll talk to you on the plane, Freddie. Nobody be alarmed. I'm Chandler Gerald, American Stolen Artifacts Founders of America. And thanks to you, we were able to catch this man, Freddie, the piece of shit back there. And I thank you, and I thank the good people of Nepal. A bunch of brilliant fuckers, all of you. I thank you, sir. You are one hell of a leader, because you, the keen, the cunningness, the instinct. The instinct is brilliant, and I can tell you trained under this man, because you have the same glare in your eye of brilliance. And you don't even know what you did, but you're brilliant anyway, because the brilliance is the best brilliance is brilliance born from someone ignorant. Forget it. This is my assistant, Kinang here, and we thank you all. It's Agent 69, and we thank you all, the people of Nepal. We thank you. You're a bunch of beautiful, brilliant people. Nepal! N-E-P-A-L! Viva Nepal! Viva Nepal!